What if I told you that some of the world's top athletes, those we idolize for their speed, strength, and endurance, are relying on a substance that could shock you? A substance that's been at the center of controversy for decades. The truth is, this isn't a new performance-enhancing drug or some cutting-edge supplement. It's something far more controversial and legal in many places. Yes, I'm talking about cannabis, but why are athletes, champions even, turning to weed? And could it be changing the game forever? Stay tuned, because what we're about to uncover will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about sports and cannabis. Cannabis and sports, a combination that, until recently, would have been considered scandalous. But to truly understand why this plant is making waves in the world of elite athletes, we need to dive into its controversial history. Flashback to 1998, the Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan. Canadian snowboarding sensation Ross Rabagliati wins the gold medal, only to have it stripped away after testing positive for cannabis. The world was outraged, shocked that an athlete would dare to use such a substance. But what many didn't know was that this event would spark a debate that still rages on today. Over the years, we've seen athletes suspended, banned, and shamed for cannabis use. U.S. Olympic sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson was denied her chance to compete in the Tokyo Olympics after testing positive for marijuana. The narrative was clear: cannabis was the enemy of sports. But beneath the surface, a different story was brewing. A story that would challenge everything we thought we knew about athletes and weed. Fast forward to today, and the narrative around cannabis in sports is shifting dramatically. What was once taboo is now becoming mainstream, and the reasons why might surprise you. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. Why are athletes turning to cannabis? For years, the stereotype of the lazy stoner dominated public perception. But today, more and more athletes are coming forward, sharing their stories of how cannabis has helped them recover from injuries, manage chronic pain, and even improve their mental health. Could it be that cannabis is more than just a recreational drug? Could it actually be a tool for elite athletes to enhance their performance legally? Take the NFL, for example. It's no secret that football is a brutal sport, leaving many players with injuries that linger long after they've left the field. Traditionally, these athletes have turned to opioids, powerful painkillers that can lead to addiction and, in some cases, tragic outcomes. But a growing number of players are now choosing cannabis instead, claiming it helps them manage pain without the dangerous side effects of prescription drugs. Is this the real reason behind the shift, or is there something more at play? But here's where it gets really interesting. If cannabis is so beneficial, why is it still banned in many sports? And why did Sha'Carri Richardson's positive test for marijuana cause such an uproar? What's really going on behind the scenes in the world of professional sports? The answer might be more complicated and more shocking than you think. To understand the full picture, we need to delve into the science of cannabis and its effects on athletic performance. The World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, has cannabis on its list of banned substances, citing three main reasons: performance enhancement, health risks, and violation of the spirit of sport. But here's where the plot thickens. Scientific studies on cannabis and athletic performance are far from conclusive. Some research suggests that cannabis can actually impair performance, causing increased heart rate, reduced coordination, and slower reaction times. On the surface, it seems like a no-brainer. Cannabis would be a detriment to any athlete, but other studies paint a different picture. Some athletes claim that cannabis helps them focus, reduces anxiety, and allows them to perform better under pressure. Could this be the secret weapon that some athletes are using to gain a mental edge? But before you jump to conclusions, consider this. Many of these claims are anecdotal, and the science is still catching up. Even WADA's own studies admit that more research is needed. So why, then, is cannabis still on the banned list? Could it be that the stigma surrounding cannabis is more powerful than the actual evidence? Or is there a deeper reason that sports organizations are reluctant to let go of this controversial ban? What if the real reason cannabis remains banned has less to do with science and more to do with politics and money? Think about it. Cannabis is big business, but it's also a threat to some of the most powerful industries in the world. Could the ongoing ban be more about protecting profits than protecting athletes? Let's talk about the elephant in the room: money. The sports industry is a multi-billion-dollar behemoth, and so is the cannabis industry. When these two worlds collide, the stakes are incredibly high. On one hand, you have the potential for cannabis companies to sponsor athletes, teams, and even leagues, opening up new revenue streams that could rival the biggest names in sports. On the other hand, there's a fear that embracing cannabis could tarnish the image of sports, an image that is carefully curated and heavily marketed. But the tide is turning. In states and countries where cannabis is legal, we're already seeing athletes endorse cannabis products. Former NFL star Ricky Williams has become an outspoken advocate for cannabis, even launching his own line of cannabis-based wellness products. And he's not alone. Athletes from various sports are stepping into the cannabis business, betting that the plant's growing acceptance will translate into big profits. But here's the twist. While some athletes are cashing in, others are still facing harsh penalties for cannabis use. The disparity is stark, and it raises a critical question. Is the sports world ready to fully embrace cannabis, or will it continue to cling to outdated rules and regulations? And more importantly, how will this affect the future of sports as we know it? So, where do we go from here? Will cannabis become the next big thing in sports, or will it remain a divisive issue that keeps athletes in the shadows? The answer isn't as clear-cut as you might think. The future of cannabis in sports is still unfolding, and the decisions made today will shape the game for generations to come. As more athletes come forward with their stories, the pressure on sports organizations to reevaluate their stance on cannabis is mounting. We're already seeing changes. Some leagues are loosening their rules, allowing players to use cannabis without fear of suspension. But the question remains, is this enough, or is there a bigger change on the horizon? Imagine a world where cannabis is not just tolerated in sports, but embraced. A world where athletes can openly use cannabis to manage pain, recover faster, and even improve their mental health. It sounds like a game changer, right? But with every potential benefit comes a risk. How will the legalization of cannabis in sports affect young athletes? Will it lead to more widespread use and potential abuse? And how will sports organizations balance the need for fairness and integrity with the realities of modern medicine and wellness? The answers to these questions are far from simple. But one thing is clear. The conversation around cannabis in sports is just getting started. And as the debate rages on, one truth remains: the game is changing, whether we like it or not. So, what's the shocking truth about athletes and cannabis? It's that we're on the brink of a revolution, one that could redefine the relationship between sports and cannabis forever. Whether it's for better or worse, only time will tell. But one thing is certain: the world of sports will never be the same. If this deep dive into the world of cannabis and sports intrigued you, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to Revenue Racers for more revealing insights into the business and controversies behind the biggest names in sports. What do you think? Should cannabis be allowed in sports? Let us know in the comments below.